For Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
And thanks as always, Ollie. Thank you very much. It is October 1st, 2019. It's Tuesday. I always do that, don't I? It's Tuesday, October 1st. This is the Richie Allen Show. My name is Richie Allen. Welcome to it, by the way. Thanks for dropping in on me. You can tweet the program right now. It's at Richie Allen Show on Twitter. Love to hear from you. Love to hear from you today. So much to talk about and so little time, I suppose, to do it in. Welcome to your show.
Richie Allen.
It's the Richie Allen Show. Broadcasting live on richieallen.co.uk and multiple platforms around the world. And now, here's your host, Richie Allen.
Yeah, do tweet me. I do love to hear from you. I'll be reading your tweets throughout the program. It's just you and me today. I had a late cancellation, which does sometimes happen. So it's me and you, but I've got loads to talk about. Got some very interesting things to delve into in the course of the next hour 10, hour 15 minutes. I have no idea how long it'll last, but lots to get into with you. And I promise you, it won't be dull. It's never dull. It's never dull. At Richie Allen Show on Twitter. And there will be an email address that I'll be able to give you from tomorrow onwards. I want to give you a new email address because I have been chastised, I have been admonished for not giving you an email address where you can send me your thoughts in more than 280 characters. Fair enough, I hear you loud and clear. Tuesday's Richie Allen Show, Fab Radio 2, triggerwarning.tv, richieallen.co.uk, and of course the TuneIn app. The TuneIn app. I love the TuneIn app. I use the TuneIn app myself when I'm out and about in the morning with dog on park. What is it about Salfordians? They say funny things. Dialect, regional dialects and regional sayings never fail to make me laugh. Now I'm well aware that those slings and arrows could be targeted at me as an Irishman. I'm sure we have turns of phrase in our cities and towns and highways and byways in Ireland that make people laugh. I have no doubt about it. But they make me laugh. My mate Tez makes me laugh. I'll get a phone call from him and he'll say, I'm going on park. I'm going on park. I'm going on to the park. You're going into the park, man. I'm going on the park. I'm going on park. What's that all about? Little things. I'm still very much amused. 3.5 months into my experience of Salford. They make me laugh. Do the Salfordians. Let's get into some interesting things. And I swear to be Jesus, Mary and Holy Saint Joseph and all the saints in heaven that I'm not going to spend very much time talking about Brexit. Just 3 minutes. I swear to God. You give me 3 minutes and I'll give you Brexit today, and then I won't do any more on Brexit. That's a stone cold promise I'm making to you. Got some interesting things besides Brexit to talk about. So very briefly, because the Prime Minister Boris Johnson has said that people need to get a reality check about Brexit and that there will need to be customs checks in Ireland after the UK leaves the European Union. But he rejected, did Boris Johnson, claims that this means a hard border. Right? He said, no, it's not a hard border. It's not a hard border. We need to have some customs checks, but it's not a hard border. You might have heard Ollie Barrett there from FSN telling you in the news that basically Johnson is undertaking to phone European Union leaders today to spell out his plans for this deal that he is going to propose to the European Union. And this whole hard border, well, it's important, right? This is the mainstay of the discussions between Europe and the UK, the border. So Johnson says, well, we need some checks because a sovereign united country must have a single customs territory. We couldn't allow Northern Ireland, remain within the European Union and all the rest of it. He wouldn't give too many details speaking to Radio 4 today, and he said that his proposals would be made very soon. He's addressing the Conservative Party conference tomorrow in Manchester, so presumably that is where he will lay out the detail. Promise you won't have much of this tonight, just a little bit. Here's Johnson speaking to Radio 4 this morning.
And I think everybody who's familiar with the situation in Ireland, in Northern Ireland, can understand why we wouldn't want both for practical reasons and also for reasons of sentiment that we totally understand.
Now, on the other hand, there is a principle here, and perhaps you can clarify that. Some in Ireland, we heard Sinn Féin's leader earlier today say there should be no checks anywhere on the island of Ireland. That they call a hardening of the border. They say it would be against the principles of the Good Friday Agreement. Other people say, forgive me, they've got to be checks somewhere if we're going to be in a different economic arrangement.
Well, I'm with the second group, Nick, because that's just the reality. And I think that what we're coming up to now is, as it were, the critical moment of choice for us as friends and partners about how we proceed. Because in the end, a sovereign united country must have a single customs territory. And when the UK withdraws from the EU, that must be the state of affairs that we have. But there are plenty of ways in which we can facilitate north-south trade, plenty of ways which we can address the problem. And without going into the details of our proposals, which I think probably will send our listeners reaching for the off button, there are the ways in which we can protect the unity of the market in the whole of the island of Ireland, and you'll have studied that you know what we're trying to do.
Yeah, nobody knows. Right, now, that's about it for Brexit, apart from this little tidbit that you need to know. So on the 17th and 18th of this month, there will be a summit in Brussels. He will be there, and he will need to have a deal at that point. If not, he is compelled then to ask for an extension, hence the Ben Act. Now, I want you to listen very carefully, because this is important, and it would have gone unnoticed in the commotion around the Tory party conference today. Listen up now. Harry Cole is a very senior writer for the Mail on Sunday, and a merry old soul is he, Harry Cole. So he writes for the Mail on Sunday. I often read his articles on Sunday View. Wait till you hear what he tells Sky News. And he told Sky News an hour or so ago, he says, the Tory rhetoric is changing. They have been saying, haven't they, we will leave on October 31st, one way or another. Deal or no deal, haven't they? They have. Now, says Harry Cole, at the conference in Manchester, they have shifted and are saying that Johnson can survive if we don't leave on Halloween. What have I been telling you since forever? Listen very carefully to this. This is a good old hack, is Harry Cole. And he knows his stuff. All along it's been, we're going to leave on October 31st. Now, today, senior Tories are saying Johnson could survive if we don't leave on Halloween. And Harry Cole explains what is going on.
There's just the slightest beginning of pitch rolling to Downing Street insiders saying, have gone from saying we're definitely leaving on the 31st of October to Boris could survive not leaving on the 31st of October, as long as it's made to look that he is literally willing to go to jail in cuffs to leave on the 31st of October. If the courts and the MPs overrule him, they think that this lot love him and the public like him enough and the Brexiteers like him enough to overcome that. If, just take for example, say there was a deal done in the next couple of weeks in Brussels, and they needed 6 weeks or so to legislate, to get the relevant legislation in through the House of Commons to get it through. You can see a scenario where, that date, as long as there is movement, as long as it looks like a deal is in the offing, I think he could survive. And at the end of the day, if the courts order him to do it, he has to do it.
Yeah. What Cole said there is Johnson's people are accepting of the fact that we're not going to leave on October 31st. But they're playing up this role now. Johnson is prepared to go to jail. Johnson is the man of the people. He's the man that is on the side of the 17.4 million and wants to leave, but that his hands are being tied. We're going nowhere. That's the most important little snippet today in a million. I haven't heard a million today, but I've heard 100 today. interviews with journalists and politicians. That's as important as it gets. They've already privately accepted they cannot leave on October 31st. It is sick. And they are spinning this narrative that Johnson, well, he's done everything he can for the people. He's going to survive it beyond Halloween when we don't leave. We're going nowhere. Anyway, moving away from Brexit but sticking with Boris Johnson and the allegations against him of groping women back in 1999 and using the Mayor of London's office to help a woman that he was shagging. Yes, I did use that word. A woman that he was rogering. A woman that he was having a dalliance with. Two big allegations. Groping two different women and using his office when he was the Mayor of London to help a woman to advance her interests while he was having it off with her. There was a very interesting exchange today between Sky's Kay Burley, who else, and the Conservative MP Andrew Rossendale. Have a listen to this. After talking about Brexit and all the jazz, Kay wanted to get into the grime, into the grubby. She wanted to get down and dirty, and sure, why not? Here's Kay and Tory MP Andrew Rossendale on the sleaze around Boris Johnson. Listen carefully.
Does your boss have a woman problem?
Does he have a woman problem?
I don't think he has a problem with anybody. I think he has a very positive outlook on life. He's determined, enthusiastic, he's energetic. He's showing leadership. I mean, I have to say, and I said to him the other day, that he's the best thing that's happened to our party since Margaret Thatcher. I remembered our party conferences when Margaret Thatcher was our leader, and this place was bubbling with enthusiasm and determination and belief and optimism, and I see that coming back to our Conservative Party. He's a real leader, and he's going to lead our country to great success in the future.
Yeah, but what about, allegations of groping women under the table on more than one occasion and potentially having sex with other women in the afternoon and then them allegedly getting contracts from public money, etc.? I mean, surely it's got to leave a bad taste.
Oh, it's got to leave a bad taste, says Kay. What does Kay know that we don't know? Back to Rossendale, does it leave a bad taste?
Yeah, look, that's not something we're debating at our party conference.
No, but it's something I'm asking you about now.
Party.
No, you can't just sweep it under the table, Mr. Rossendale. There's a lot of female... No, please let me ask the question and then you can answer it if you don't mind. Okay. There's a lot of female viewers watching this afternoon who will feel that is extremely distasteful. So you either believe the women or you believe the Prime Minister. Who do you believe?
You either believe the women or the Prime Minister?
What kind of fuckery is this?
Sure, that's a preposterous question. How the hell could he know? His colleague is the Prime Minister. He said he didn't do it. What more can Rossendale or anybody else do about it? It's ridiculous, right? It's ridiculous, this. Either the woman has evidence and has witnesses 20 years ago, or she doesn't. Meaning it's hearsay. Even coming from the accuser herself, it's tantamount to hearsay. What a ridiculous question. And this is how far the media has sunk in recent years in this country. It is crap, but it gets even worse. Have a listen.
I believe that Boris Johnson is a good man. I don't believe he would have done anything that's being talked about, and I think that if you look at our party today, we have huge numbers of women who are supporting Boris Johnson, huge numbers at this conference. We have some excellent new candidates who are standing, who are women. The Conservative Party has led the way in giving women the opportunity to become members of Parliament and hold senior positions in our party.
Not disagreeing with you, I'm just asking you.
And I think that,
telling the truth and one of them has to be not telling the truth. So
but how could he know? How could he possibly know who's telling the truth? This is not just bad presenting by a bad presenter, let's be honest about it. This is more sinister, this. How in the name of all that's holy could this guy Rossendale know who's telling the truth?
So who's being economical with the actuality, would you say?
I believe Boris Johnson is a truthful man. I don't believe that this is something we should occupy our time with. We've got issues that are important about the future of our country.
Mr. Rossendale, even though I may say that he's been sacked twice for lying.
Kay, frankly, I think that, an afternoon of our party conference, we should be talking about serious issues regarding the future of our country.
That's not how this works, Mr. Rosendale.
And I really don't think...
You agreed to be interviewed. I asked the questions. Yeah. You say he's a truthful man. I've pointed out to you that he's been sacked twice for lying, including once from your previous leader, Michael Howard.
Well, if you want Michael Howard on the programme, ask him about that. All I know is that Boris Johnson is proving to be a magnificent leader of our party. He's going to take us out of the European Union, do for our country, and that's what we're going to focus on here in Manchester.
Yeah, but you acknowledge that he's not always a truthful man.
No, I think that it's unfair to keep throwing mud at Boris. I think that he's got a difficult job, he's got a hard task to perform, and we should back him, and I'm backing him all the way.
Good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Thank you.
Right. Ludicrous stuff. But then Burley does something disgusting and utterly unforgivable. And I don't have time for melodrama. I really don't. Listen to what Burley says. She said, nice to talk to you. Thank you very much. He says, thank you back. And listen to what she says then. This is, well, it doesn't get any lower than this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to just get rid of that sweat on his top lip. Still to come on the programme for you this afternoon.
Did you catch that?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to just get rid of that sweat on his top lip. Still to come on the programme for you this afternoon.
I just wanted to get rid of that sweat on his top lip, said Burley. And I've watched the interview myself, and I've rewound it, and I've zoomed in on Andrew Rossendale, and there was no sweat on his top lip. There was none whatsoever. And what she's done there, Burley. And I'm from trade union stock, me. I don't believe in firing people. I don't believe in putting people out of work. But what Burley is doing, I'd suspend her for doing it, is she's nodding to the viewer and saying, he, Rossendale, wilted under my rigorous examination of him, and he was sweating under pressure. I'm a great presenter, blah, blah, blah. Listen again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to just get rid of that sweat on his top lip. Still to come on the programme for you this afternoon.
That's as bad. I've never heard anything as bad as that, even on Fox News. And Sky should apologise unreservedly to the man, and Burley should issue a statement on it. It is a total failure of journalism. I think, I go through days listening to this stuff, and I think I can't be shocked anymore by the conduct of the United Kingdom's news anchors, and then I am. I wanted to wipe that sweat off his top lip, says Burley. Off his top lip. Shocking stuff. But who cares? Who's watching? Nobody's watching. Nobody's paying attention, right? Here's a laugh for you. That is absolutely wretched. I'm not overselling that. I'm not being melodramatic. I'm not going over the top. Fuck it, I'll say it. You should be fired for that. You've got no place. You've got no business in a television studio. When you've said goodbye to a man, he's thanked you for the interview. And as he's wiped off the screen, you say, I wanted to get rid of the sweat from his top lip. You are wretched. A complete failure of a journalist and a human being. And you shouldn't be on television. Horrendous. Here's a laugh for you, though. The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, the beleaguered Boris, God love him, it's 21 minutes past the hour, by the way. He was on the Nick Ferrari show this morning on LBC Radio when he was asked about the BBC presenter Naga Munchetti. Now, Naga Munchetti is the woman of colour who was criticised even by her BBC bosses, you'll remember, for inserting her own opinion of Donald Trump into her breakfast programme. Okay? So this is all about Trump saying these congresswomen should go home. They should go back to where they came from. She was talking about it on BBC Breakfast, and she insinuated that his comments were motivated by racism. She was complained, and the BBC correctly upheld the claim. But then they reversed themselves yesterday, after a lot of black celebrities and others said that she was right to call Trump a racist. And hilariously, Boris Johnson was asked about this morning by Nick Ferrari on LBC Radio, and you've just got to laugh.
Another woman who's appeared in the headlines is Naga Munchetti. Did she breach editorial guidelines at the BBC by calling Donald Trump a racist?
I'm so sorry, I've never heard.
You don't know the story? You've never heard of Naga Munchetti?
No, I'm so sorry.
The row over racism?
You're going to have to forgive me.
Let's move
I should know about Naga Munchetti. But does anybody know about Naga Munchetti? Hands up. lead. You know about Nagamunchetti?
Hands up. Does anybody... He's got his advisors, you see. Does anybody know about Nagamunchetti? Hands up. Hands up.
Yes, your whole team is putting their hands up, Prime Minister, but don't...
Tom Shield doesn't know about it.
Well, no, well, never mind.
Nor does Theo.
Right.
He doesn't watch the news. He doesn't watch the BBC breakfast show, and he doesn't know who Nagamunchetti is. Old Bojo. Right, it's 23 minutes past the hour then. This is the Richie Allen Show for Tuesday. It is October 1st, 2019. It's just you and me today. I've got a lot of things to talk about, some very interesting things. By the way, Beth Rigby, who's Sky News political editor, and I like Beth Rigby. She's very good, very experienced, old. She's not old. When I say old, I mean experienced. Hack. We say hack, and Jean Ann, who's listening in Cleggan, knows we say hack in the complimentary sense. She's recently been promoted to the head of politics at Sky News. Beth Rigby has interviewed Boris Johnson this afternoon. Sky hasn't yet played any of the clips from it, but apparently it did get very heated when his private life came up, and I don't have it to bring you because I didn't see it, because I came on air before Sky played it. But apparently he's been speaking with Beth Rigby, and apparently it's not gone very well. It's been contentious. And there's no harm in that either. It's been contentious. So it has. I'll be reading your tweets out when I come back in a couple of minutes' time, after we hear some music from Stevie Wonder. Why not? On your Richie Allen Show. Good to be with you. Keep the tweets coming in. I'll be looking at them right now. Right, it's not a music show. Stevie Wonder, part-time lover on the Richie Allen Show. Let's look at the tweets then. There are plenty of them before we go back to the news. Patrick says, Richie, I personally like Nagamunchetti. We have a common interest in golf and she presents well, says Patrick. Nothing wrong with her being a bit of a spitfire, he says. The context of breakfast shows should permit presenters to air their own views. Fair enough, Patrick. But the BBC's own editorial guidelines and its own code of conduct for its presenters specifically and very explicitly forbids them from opining. Some of you who've been with the programme long enough will remember a Twitter exchange between myself and Nicky Campbell, which was nice and polite. And Campbell said to me, I'd like to come on your programme, but I'm not allowed to opine, not even on my spare time. There was murders earlier this year about Gary Lineker, the jug-eared muppet who used to play for England, Willie Thorne's pal. Lineker spends a lot of time on Twitter opining about politics, but the BBC gives him a pass because he's a football presenter. So Patrick, I'm not saying you're wrong. Maybe the BBC should make it perfectly clear then that it is no longer an organisation of journalistic integrity. That from now on in, it'll do what ITV does with Piers Morgan. We'll put some personalities on there and let them tell you what to think. Rather than, I'm having a go at you now, Patrick, I get your point, by the way. Rather than read the news, you know, here are some facts that we have determined and make sure both sides are heard. Rather than do that and shut the hell up, which is what they are told to do contractually, maybe from now on they should say, listen, forget about it. It's off the table. Chris Morrell says that was incredible by Burley. Munchetti gets done for editorialising, but Kay seemed to editorialise, visualise, fantasise and redefine all in one, says Chris there. William says Johnson doesn't watch the breakfast news. He's too busy sowing his seeds by the sounds of it. What a horrid thought, says William. William, I didn't need to hear that. But thank you. Gail tells me that, as if I needed to be told, I've lived in the UK long enough, that, you know, Yorkshire people say on road, over road. I know this, Gail. I wasn't born yesterday. I was referring to on the park. Where does that come from? You don't have to climb onto the park, do you? I'm going on park. What does that mean? I say I'm going into the park. Or I'm going to the park. Bloody Salfordians, eh? Eh? But I love them. Hi to Quango. How you doing, Quango? Hi to Moinga. Thanks for that, Moinga. John Parsons asks in Salford, Anyone who seriously thinks Johnson is a Brexiteer needs to look at his reactions after the result in 2016. In my opinion, Boris threw his weight behind the No campaign purely because he thought it would lose, leaving him as the gallant loser, says John. Thank you, John. That is an interesting point. Johnson voted for May's toxic deal, of course. I said I wouldn't do any more Brexit, so I better not. We're going to leave it. We're going to talk about Donald Trump now. Hi to Natalie Stacey. How you doing, Natalie? Live at 5, says Natalie. It makes navigating through the mindless ants staring at their phones bearable on her commute. She's listening to the Richie Allen Show in transit. Good stuff. I hope it makes it more bearable, Natalie. Hope it does. Listen, on the 2nd of November, I'll be over at Trigger Warning Towers on Cheetham Hill with Graham Booth and Hayden Hewitt. Go to triggerwarning.tv, the website, to look for tickets for this event. It's a free speech event. Some of it will be filmed and streamed live on YouTube. I've been asked to go along. I'm very, very, very privileged to be asked. I'm looking forward to it. It's November the 2nd. It is November the 2nd. Hey, listen, just before we talk about Donald Trump and the whistleblower, it's all very exciting. Have a listen to this, back in 60 seconds.
Renowned healer Mark Bayersky travels the world to find the most unique and powerful crystals for self-healing. Since the ancient times, crystals have been used as healing tools. They hold a natural healing vibration and are highly charged in positive energy. Mark teaches how to channel the universal energy and transfer it to the crystal to activate its healing power. Each crystal is used for its unique ability to target a different physical or emotional challenge. Mark Bayersky is an author, healer, speaker, and founder of the Pure Energy Healing Academy. He shares powerful messages of inspiration and healing on his daily YouTube videos, reaching millions worldwide. Mark's crystals, healing oils, and incense sticks are most sought after by other healers. His collection is available online at www.markbayersky.com. His work is presented through Lemon House, a company that creates and curates consciously made gifts.
The Richie Allen Show relies on your support. Go to richieallen.co.uk and set up a monthly donation today.
Richie Allen.
Welcome back to the program. It is your Richie Allen Show. Who else is it? Is it? It's yours. Love to be interviewing Bojo today. Did you shag her? Bojo? Did you shag her? Go on, Bojo. Who are you talking about? The woman you gave business to when you were the mayor of London. Go on. Did you, Boris? Did you give her one, Boris? Anyway. Lovely. Let's crack on. Donald Trump then and the whistleblower. Democrats have demanded in the United States that they get records from the president's personal lawyer, who is, of course, Rudy Giuliani. Do you remember how Rudy Giuliani was feted because of his response to the attacks in New York on September the 11th? Do you remember? The mayor, Rudy Giuliani. He's Trump's personal lawyer. And Democrats want his records. This is all part of this impeachment inquiry. They want to get rid of him. They want to get rid of the Donald. Giuliani has admitted to asking Ukrainian officials to investigate debunked corruption allegations against Democratic rival Joe Biden. Debunked, according to the Washington Post and according to the BBC. I don't know, you see. How could I possibly know? Lawmakers issued a subpoena for those communications from Giuliani. All part of these impeachment proceedings. And these proceedings are happening because of a whistleblower complaint. The whistleblower apparently is a CIA officer, revealed concerns among a number of officials at the White House that Donald had attempted to pressure a foreign leader into investigating one of his rivals. This is Volodymyr Zelensky, of course, Ukrainian president. Last week we got a transcript, didn't we, of a call between Trump and the president of Ukraine. And the transcript basically showed Trump asking Zelensky to investigate the so-called discredited allegations against Biden. Biden is currently, I suppose, the Democratic front runner for the nomination to go up against Donald Trump next November. November 12 month, I should say. So it emerged yesterday that US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo had listened in on this call, by the way, between Volodymyr Zelensky and the Donald. Okay? This is all basically, this is the centre of this impeachment inquiry. Pompeo was served with a subpoena last week by House Democrats. Now, Kamala Harris is an American lawyer. She's junior US Senator from California. Okay, she's a former district attorney, is Kamala Harris, and she's running for president. Hi, I'm Kamala Harris, and I'm running for president. She's a black lady. And she was on CNN with Anderson Cooper last evening. Donald Trump has allegedly warned, so he has, of a civil war. If this carries on, if this inquiry carries on, there'll be a civil war, says Donald Trump. Kamala Harris, well, she wasn't one bit impressed. Here she is on CNN.
Anderson, the last time our country endured a civil war was over America's original sin, slavery. And if Donald Trump thinks that this is a moment...
America's original sin, slavery? What about Native Americans? Or is she rolling, is that all one big ball of wax to Kamala Harris? Is original sin in the United States the treatment of Africans kidnapped and dragged to the country, terrible of course, or the displacement and the murder of maybe millions of Native Americans? Anyway, semantics, right? What else does she say?
A moment where he's actually being held accountable for his failures as president and his failure to uphold the oath to protect the Constitution of the United States and our democracy. If he's equating that with a war that took place between American people over slavery, I mean, it is yet again evidence of the fact that he is delusional in that he has a very outsized sense of himself as compared to the history of our country and all that we have been through and all that we are capable of. So, you know, I just think what's most important is we not indulge his delusions and that we bring him back to reality, and I think the impeachment process will do that.
There are a lot of supporters, though, of the president out there who are, you know, good people who work hard and voted for him in good faith and believe in him to this day. I'm wondering what you say to them who look at this and say, well, look, this is just Democrats can't get him out of through, you know, the ballot box, so now they're just trying to do it this way.
Listen, I will never fault anyone for a decision they made about who to vote for.
I'll tell the truth now. You and your pals have categorized every American that voted for Trump, even the black Americans. You've labeled them Uncle Toms, and you've labeled everybody else who voted for him as some sort of redneck racist. So stop lying and saying that you wouldn't, you know, put people down or criticize them for their decision at the ballot box. You'd be telling porkies there. You've categorized them all as a bunch of ignoramuses, ignorami, haven't you? And the blacks are Uncle Toms, apparently, who voted for Trump. Be honest, love.
Meaning that I don't believe that to be then the entire measure of who people are. What I would say is this, to everyone, and I say it all the time, the framers of our Constitution, the founders of our nation, they imagined a moment such as this. They imagined a moment where one branch of government would abuse its power. And so they designed our beautiful system of democracy, flawed though it may be. They designed it such that there would be checks and balances.
I wonder, is she trying not to laugh while she's saying that herself? She says Trump's tweets might be putting the whistleblower's life in danger. And maybe Trump should be suspended by Twitter. This is interesting.
The president's tweets and his behaviors about this are just further evidence of the fact that he uses his power in a way that is designed to beat people down instead of lift people up. Frankly, when you look at what he's been tweeting today, directed at the whistleblower, directed at so many people, I frankly think that based on this and all we've seen him do before, including attacking members of Congress, that he frankly should be, his Twitter account should be suspended. I think there is plenty of now evidence to suggest that he is irresponsible with his words in a way that could result in harm to other people. And so the privilege of using those words in that way should probably be taken from him.
But sounds familiar, that, doesn't it? Words could cause harm to third parties. And the privilege of using Twitter should be taken from him, says presidential candidate Kamala Harris. What does Cooper say?
But doesn't that, I mean, play into certainly the hands of, you know, his, what, I don't know how many Twitter followers he has. I think it's in the
millions,
in the range of 60 million, who say, well, look, okay, now you know, the rich folks in Silicon Valley are just trying to silence me and taking me off Twitter.
I'm sure that will be said, but we have to also agree that when the President of the United States speaks, her words are very powerful.
What was that? What was that? Just as a matter of interest.
I have to also agree that when the President of the United States speaks, her words are very powerful.
Her words are very powerful. Why would you say that? That's not a slip of the tongue that can be explained away as just a slip of the tongue, right? I've been thinking about that all day long. Why would you say her words? Anyway, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it's wishful thinking, maybe.
And should be used in a way that is not about belittling, much less harming anyone. And this president has, I think, never fully appreciated that responsibility. And so what we see continuously, including in the last 24 hours, is a use of his words, Donald Trump using his words, in a way that could subject someone to harm. And if he's not going to exercise self-restraint, then perhaps there should be other mechanisms in place to make sure that his words do not, in fact, harm anyone. And that's my point.
We have the same story over here, of course. Very familiar story, this, about language and it being dangerous. But I will say this, and Donald Trump supporters won't like this one bit. It is easier to make an argument that Trump's tweets are inciting than it is to make an argument that Boris Johnson's language represents a danger to members of Parliament. Trump's tweets about the whistleblower are right on the edge of the line, in my opinion, as to where it could be argued that you are suggesting that some harm could come to somebody because of what they've said or what they've done. Right on the edge of it. Donald Trump is wretched. He is a Zionist puppet, the greatest Zionist puppet that's ever sat in the Oval Office. He is horrendous. But don't be talking about suspending him from Twitter because you don't like what it is that he is saying. Mad stuff, this. I was going to play this for you yesterday, but I didn't get a chance. But it is interesting because, again, so much of it is distracting. You know, from more important issues. Obviously, Venezuela, Iran. Obviously, what's happening in Syria. So staying with Trump briefly and CNN. Did you see Robert De Niro? That's Bob, by the way. Bob the actor. He was on CNN on Sunday morning chatting about Trump. You must have seen this. I know many of you won't have seen it. So it's interesting. It's more hysterical than interesting. Robert De Niro speculates. This is the sort of crap that has replaced news and journalism. However I feel about Trump, and Trump is a neocon Zionist puppet. That's all he is. Dangerous lunatic, right? But he's a puppet. The real dangerous lunatics are the ones pulling his strings. De Niro on CNN on Sunday morning speculates that if Donald Trump was to lose in 2020, he won't move out of the White House. Where do they get this unsubstantiated horse manure from to dress up as news? De Niro saying he won't move out if he loses the election next year.
I don't think he's capable of resigning. Bill Maher a couple of weeks ago said that it's going to be difficult getting him out of the White House, especially if he wins marginally, if he loses marginally.
Do you have that fear as well, that he wouldn't leave?
Yeah, he'll say it's rigged or this or that. He'll find this guy has done everything possible, much worse than I ever thought, ever. The day after he was elected, I said, well, give him a chance. You never know, you'll see. But he's worse than I ever could have imagined.
I wonder, as an actor, do you ever look at the president and think he's performing, like he's playing an act or something?
In some ways, I think he is, but I think that it's, as I think some of these other pundits on Fox are too, because I can't believe that they would actually buy into this craziness. This guy should not be president. Period.
Well, he is. Suck it up, Bob. He is. And that's about the size of it. What crap about not leaving the White House if he loses? This is news today. The host is a guy called Brian Stelter, then says to Bob De Niro, what you've just said about Fox News anchors being in on it, Bob. Fox News won't like that. Fox might come after you, says Brian Stelter to Bob.
And when you say that, folks on Fox come after you. I remember the Tonys when you got up there and cursed. A lot of criticism of you.
Fuck 'em.
Okay, well, this is cable, so it's not an FCC violation.
That was a producer, by the way. This is a Sunday morning program on CNN. And that was the producer on CNN basically telling De Niro to stop swearing.
A lot of criticism of you.
Fuck 'em.
Okay, well, this is cable, so it's not an FCC violation, but it is still a Sunday morning.
Well,
I do wonder why you choose to go that way.
Let me say something.
Why do you choose to go that way?
We are at a moment in our life, in this country, where this guy is like a gangster. He's come along and he's said things, done things we say over and over again. This is terrible. We're in a terrible situation.
Jesus, huh? Mad. The interview got worse. The host, CNN's Brian Stelter, then said to Bob De Niro, he said, Bob, the latest opinion polls show that Trump is pretty much unbeatable next year, November 2020. He is a shoo-in, said Brian Stelter. Well, Bob De Niro, he just wasn't happy at all.
I want that son of a bitch dead. I want him dead. I want him dead. I'm dead. What am I, alone in this world? Did I ask you what you're trying to do? Did I ask you what you're trying to do? I want him dead. I want his family dead. I want his house burnt to the ground. I want to go to the middle of the night. I want to piss on his ass.
I couldn't resist it. I couldn't resist it. Yeah. It's brilliant. And you know what it serves? You know the purpose it serves? It energizes people. No, but I know I've said this before. There's never been a time in my lifetime when people are more engaged and are more proactive with politics. They love it. It is game, set and match for the elite. Wonderful. People love it now. It is one massive soap opera. Again, I've bored you with the intimate details of why I believe it's a soap opera and how it's scripted. It is incredible how people love it. Fantastic. If Bob De Niro on national television saying, fuck him, fuck him. Right. Brilliant. And they all love it. Trump loves it, loves it. He might have tweeted out about Robert De Niro, but of course he loves it, Trump. And the people behind Trump love it because it energizes the base. And that's what this impeachment nonsense is about as well. They cannot possibly get an impeachment hearing against Trump. They can't. The mathematics don't work. It's a nonsense. It's a deep state move, again, to re-energize, if they need any more energizing, Donald Trump's base. It's identity politics. People love it. It's the circus. And people can't wait to buy a ticket. That's what it is. Crazy. Mad. But what are you going to do? Here's a bit of madness for you. It is exactly 12 minutes to the top of the hour. This is the Richie Allen Show for Tuesday, October 1st, 2019. I've got to work a lot harder, by the way, when I have no guest. You know that? My guest left me down earlier. No big deal. Then I have to fill and fill. So I've been at this all day long. But there's so much going on, it was fairly easy. I have two terrific guests for you tomorrow. But it's just me and you today. For another 20 minutes or thereabouts, I think. I'm not sure how much time I've left. I have a few things to talk about. This is mad stuff. But again, it's designed to get people all riled up. Doesn't get me riled up. I just yawn, or I sigh, or I say to myself, I know what they're doing there. You might have heard this. I wanted to get into this yesterday, but I ran out of time. This is about the University of Edinburgh, which has allowed an event take place at the university called Resisting Whiteness 2019. Yes, whiteness, because we are a shower of bastards, aren't we? The whites, all of us, fuckers. It's our fault for everything. Mine, specifically mine. Me, I shoulder the blame. Everything that's ever happened to a minority, it's my fucking fault. Big baldy white Irish gammon bollocks. I know, it's me. I'm taking responsibility. Can I take responsibility on behalf of the white race? And can we just be friends then and move on? I'm to blame for everything. Smallpox on blankets, that was me. Yeah. Slave trading, that's me. I'm a bastard, so I am. So yeah, Resisting Whiteness was an event at the University of Edinburgh. Resisting Whiteness. And it was put on by QTPOC. Now, QTPOC stands for Queer and Trans People of Colour. Jesus Christ. I told you. This is cellular mitosis. What they're doing. Identity groups are splitting off to become more identity groups. Armies of them. Do you remember the Itchy and Scratchy cartoon? When every time the cat Itchy chopped the mouse Scratchy in half. Each time he chopped them in half, the two halves became two more mice. And so on, so on, so on. So there were millions of mice. That's what they're doing. Identity groups are splitting up to become even smaller groups, and they're splitting up again. And you have millions of identity groups. So now we have QT, POC, queer and trans people of colour. Fucking Jesus wept. How do you join them? Well, I suppose you have to be of colour and queer or a trans person. So they organised an event called the Resisting Whiteness 2019 event. And they called themselves the Resisting Whiteness Collective. Fucking hell. What were they doing? Well, they wanted to talk about toxicity, whiteness, the legacy. And they didn't want white people there. But eventually they had to agree to allow white people to come along. But they said white people couldn't speak. Priority was given to questions from people of colour in the audience. Fuck the white people there. Sorry, you can't speak. Because we want to amplify the voices of people of colour. It's fucking crazy this, isn't it? And there is a black politician in London called David Curtin, Brexit Alliance. He's a Brexiteer, black politician, David Curtin. And he was speaking about this, so he was, on RT yesterday. And to be fair to him, give him his due, he's not impressed by this either.
It's blatant racism. There's no such thing as reverse racism. Racism is excluding people because of the colour of their skin, and this does that. Yeah, whereas before we've had the kind of racism that excludes people and discriminates against people because they're black. This blatantly discriminates against people because they're white, and this doesn't do any good for anybody, whether they're white or black or brown, and this kind of thing just simply should not be happening.
You get a few examples of incidents like this, and it feels like people are always slightly afraid to do anything about it for fear of being called racist themselves. So the university have got this situation. They've got a group, I think they were called Resisting Whiteness. Now, if that was called Resisting Blackness, the action they'd take would be pretty clear. This way round, though, they struggled. Should they have given a platform to this group and given the conditions in which the group was operating?
Well, I'm for giving a platform for any group, whatever anyone wants to say. But that's the whole problem with this event, is that they're not allowing a platform for people who are white on the basis of their colour of their skin. And as you say, if someone decided to put on an event called Resisting Blackness, can you imagine the outrage which...
Oh, Jesus, yeah, can you imagine the outrage?
Outrage which we would have had from the same kind of people who are putting on this event. Everyone would be up in arms, from people on the extremes of the political spectrum and all of the illiberal, if you like, elite in the media would be writing about it, condemning it, and we wouldn't hear the end of it for days, if not weeks. And so that just goes to show the kind of hypocrisy that you've got in academic circles these days.
Yeah. I mean, look, if they want to meet, free speech means free speech for everybody, even those you don't agree with. So you can't, on the one hand, demand free speech, and then on the other hand, demand that their event is cancelled, or that they are not allowed to have or to hold any more such events. No, you can't do that. Just lampoon the bejesus out of them, unmercifully. Satire them back to the Stone Age. Let them have their fucking ridiculous events. Resisting whiteness, queers and trans people of colour. Fuck off, It's pathetic to be petitioning the university to ban them. Just laugh at them. Students should be gathered outside the doors of the hall and should be laughing in their faces when they emerge. That's how you destroy these idiots. You don't fight them, you don't beat them up, you don't threaten them. You don't do any of that. You just absolutely hammer them satirically and comedically. That's what you do. Simple as that. But it's sinister because it's being encouraged, of course. You know, this notion that of white privilege, of some predetermined psyche that we have, white people, because of our advantages and how our ancestors took advantage of people and of minorities. I think it's horse shit, to be honest, personally. I have no interest in it. I'm happy to talk about it on the programme if any of these people would ever have the courage to come on. But it's horse shit in every sense of the word. But it's a very sinister thing because it ultimately goes towards obviously exclusion, obviously censorship. It obviously goes to the rewriting of history, the destruction of historical artefacts and artwork to appease people in the 21st century who haven't the first fucking clue about slavery. Makes me laugh when people talk about slavery. Yeah, you live in Milton Keynes, pal, in a 4-bedroomed house. But I'm black. I know you're black. I'm well aware of it. And I have no issue with that either. But you haven't a fucking Scooby-Doo about racism. Never experienced, slavery. You've never experienced it. Don't know anything about it. And just because it happened to black people historically doesn't give you now some advantage in the 21st century over me. I'm not putting up with that. Fuck that. I've never enslaved anybody. Right? That's how I feel about it. I feel pretty strongly about that. As you might have gathered, this is the Richie Allen Show. Just in case you don't know. Live right now on Fab Radio 2 in Manchester, richieallen.co.uk, triggerwarning.tv and bladdy. What else have I got for you today? Over road. The Tory conference is over road. Priti Patel, the Home Secretary. We know all about Priti, don't we? We're all going on a summer holiday to Israel. And we're not going to tell the International Development Secretary, when she was the International Development Secretary, we're not going to tell our government, we're not going to tell our boss, her boss, no, I'm going to have secret meetings with the Israelis. Wow. Yes, she was fired for that. But what the hell? She's back in the cabinet. These days she is the Home Secretary. So I have no fear of contradiction. Israel's own Priti Patel is in charge of law and order in the United Kingdom. Yes, that is true. We know all about her. So she gave an address to the Tory party conference today, so she did. And she repeated the government's promise to end freedom of movement from the European Union and to introduce a points-style system for immigration. She also talked about helping the police and all the rest of it and leaving the European Union. Do you want to hear a bit of Priti Patel? Here's Priti Patel on immigration.
I have a particular responsibility when it comes to taking back control. It is to end the free movement of people once and for all. Instead, we will introduce an Australian-style points-based immigration system. One that works in the best interests of Britain. One that attracts and welcomes the brightest and the best. One that supports the brilliant scientists, the finest academics, and leading people in their fields. And one that is under the control of the British government.
Yeah, let's poach learned men and women from developing economies, depriving those economies and those countries of their best and brightest. Let's do that. Not such a good idea, that, is it? All right, if you want to be selfish about things, it's a good idea, Richie, if we get the smartest men and women in science, medicine, academia, and take them from all over the world and bring them in here. Well, what about their own countries, maybe? I don't know, maybe. Maybe they might be better off contributing in their own countries, maybe, where they were educated to begin with, maybe. I don't know. It's just a thought, right? Thank you very much.
Because let me tell you something.
Go on.
This daughter of immigrants needs no lectures from the North London metropolitan liberal elite.
Yeah. With all the money they have, you would imagine they would spend it on coaching these goons on how to deliver a speech to conference without it sounding as obviously fucking rehearsed and managed as it always inevitably does. Don't they give them any lessons in speaking in a way that makes it sound a bit more off the cuff? It's dreadful, isn't it? Dreadful stuff. This daughter of immigrants, yes, Priti Patel. Priti Patel. Coming up for 6 o'clock it is. Not long to go today, I'm afraid. But sure, look, it hasn't been dull, has it? The reggae legend Bob Marley. And he is a bit of a legend, old Bob, huh? I know a lot about Bob Marley, and it's only because of Island Records. I have to be honest about that. I'm not going to try and come off old cool and say that I'm a big Bob Marley fan. Not going to do that, because that would be bullshit. I like some of Bob's songs. I do have Legend, of course. We all have Legend. If you go through anybody's vinyl collection, and if they've got a decent vinyl collection, there are some staples. If they've got a really good collection, there are some staples in there. There are some cliches in there that you must have. Grease, the soundtrack, is one. Right. Saturday Night Fever, the soundtrack, is another one. ABBA Gold is another one. And, well, you've got to fit Bob Marley Legend into that category. I only know about Bob, really, from Chris Blackwell and Island Records, because Island Records obviously gave U2 a record deal. And, of course, when I was a young lad, I loved U2, loved them. And I learned a lot about Chris Blackwell and his time in the Caribbean and his interest in reggae music and his introduction to Bob and Rita and all the rest of it. Right. So Bob Marley has been honoured with an English Heritage Blue plaque at the London house that he lived in when he finished recording Exodus, which even an idiot like me, a white baldy gammon like me, knows is a seminal album. Major album, Exodus. Full of lovely tunes. Lovely easy listening, isn't it? You stick Legend on, you get a glass of red wine going, and you chill out and listen to a bit of Legend. Lovely, right? But I'm not going to claim to be any big fan or know anything about reggae, because I don't. Jimmy Cliff. I like a bit of Jimmy Cliff as well. Anyway. So Bob's getting a Blue Heritage plaque. Absolutely right too. For where he lived when he recorded Exodus. This is about Black History Month, and there has been a drive to uncover more addresses of ethnic minority figures, people of interest who were ethnic minorities but achieved in the arts and in public life. Fair enough, no big deal at all. Good stuff, I would say. Now, Kay Burley today, because Kay was such a complete arse today, and I mean it when I say she should have been fired for what she said about Rosendale, Andrew Rosendale, the Tory MP. It was disgusting. And I would imagine there would be some very uncomfortable producers at Sky who weren't too happy with that. Whether they would have the courage to speak up, I have no idea, but it was crap. Karma must have been in the air, because shortly after Kay interviewed Andrew Rosendale and behaved abominably, she then interviewed a guy called Michael Riley. Now, Michael is a black academic based in London, and I might be mispronouncing his name, but Burley referred to him as Michael. I think it's more like Mikkel or Mikkel, because it's spelled M-Y-K-A-E, I think double L or something like that. Anyway, he's an academic, and he's an expert in the heritage of musicians, black musicians, and Kay Burley brought him on to talk about the fact that Bob Marley is justifiably getting a Blue Heritage plaque. Here's Kay Burley. Good stuff.
Still to come. Let's bring in Michael Riley, who is the director of the Black Music Culture Unit at the University of Manchester. Hello to you. Thank you for joining us on the programme this afternoon. How lovely is this?
Fucking hell. Anyway, that was strike one because he doesn't come from Manchester.
I think it's absolutely fantastic. I should just correct you in that I'm actually at the University of Westminster in London.
Okay, thanks. Sorry about that.
You don't sound very sorry though, Kay.
Why is it fantastic? What's so? Why has it not happened before now? I suppose is my question, because he's a worldwide superstar.
She's already on strike one, right? So she asks him, Why hasn't it happened before now?
So, why has it not happened before now, I suppose, is my question. Because he's, you know, a worldwide superstar.
Fuck's sake, right.
Actually, there is more than one blue plaque that has been erected or...
Turns out that Bob has loads of blue plaques.
Placed on buildings.
Just shitloads of them.
In relation to Bob Marley's residence in the UK, not least in Brent, where he actually spent more time than even at this residence. So it has happened before.
Not going well, this is a K-Love.
Okay. How important...
Okay.
is it, do you think? I mean, obviously not to him anymore, but how important is it to...
Obviously not to him anymore, because he's not around, says Kay. Kay's the gift that keeps on giving. This is karma for what she did to Rosendale.
Before.
Okay. How important is it, do you think? I mean, obviously not to him anymore, but how important...
Not to him anymore, obviously.
is it to fans to be able to wander around and...
Oh, Christ, this is gold.
You know, see a blue plaque and wander up and think, oh, yeah, that's where Bob Marley used to live. That's where he recorded Exodus and the like, or certainly wrote it.
I think it's significant. It's important. It speaks to a legacy and a contribution to British culture through music. It re-establishes and reaffirms, I think, a relationship between Jamaica and the UK. And it's actually, I think, in terms of cultural contributions, absolutely significant because it's evidence of a particular contribution that often we overlook because it's an invisible. Without these signs, these contributions are invisible.
Yeah, when you've gotten the man's university wrong, when you fucked that up, when you said it's not important to him anymore, obviously, Bob Marley, when you've asked a stupid question about why hasn't this happened before, and he tells you that there are lots of Bob Marley blue plaques around the country, and you're flustered, there's only one place to go if you're Kay Burley. I love this.
Why was he so fabulous?
Oh, fantastic. When in doubt...
why was he so fabulous?
And the guy laughs himself, right? This is comedy gold.
I have time to answer that. I think in so many ways, to the black community, he was significant because he reminded and in some cases educated a community as to their relationship to Africa. Certainly in my experience, it was about a connection with the Caribbean and clarifying that relationship between British, the Caribbean, and Africa. In terms of music, he was successful. And growing up in Britain, we needed role models, and he was a perfect role model. But even more than that, he challenged, I think, institutions. He challenged government. He represented people and the community and explained in many ways through music a struggle that wasn't articulated or recognised in government internationally.
Yeah, very good. Absolutely right, Bob Marley. Kay's marvellous. We'd miss Kay, wouldn't we? We'd miss Kay if she was gone. What are you, Kay?
Fabulous.
It's all good.
Fabulous. Yeah, if I was Andrew Rosendale and I was told later on today that she had suggested that my top lip was sweaty because of her rigorous examination of him, I would go for her on social media. I'd be asking her questions. Anyway. Hey, Dave from the Sex Pistols Experience, one of the best tribute bands in the world, says to me, Richie, those albums you mentioned, says Dave from the Sex Pistols Experience, I've got all those vinyl LPs. Classics, but you missed out one. Of course I did. Never mind the bollocks by the Sex Pistols. It's an amazing album. Combat Rock by The Clash maybe as well. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to the Sex Pistols Experience coming back up this way to Manchester so I can see them. Because they're a great bunch of lads. I've seen clips of them, of course, on Tinternet and all the rest of it. Right. Joe Public says, I have a small collection of albums, Richie, and have none of the aforementioned titles. Yeah, what I'm saying is if you've inherited LPs from your parents, your uncles, your aunties, your granddaddies and your grandmammies, you will have those albums, ABBA Gold. You will have Saturday Night Fever. You will have Grease, the soundtrack. You will. I've got them. Got all of them, and I do have a copy of Nevermind the Bollocks, but it's not a 1970s copy. It's one of those bloody 180-gram vinyl reissues, which is all right, but I prefer to buy the albums. When I buy my vinyls, I buy them from the era they were first pressed, if possible. Sometimes it's expensive and you can't do that, but I like to get them. I had one delivered today, incidentally, from Bob Seega. Yes, from Bob. From the early 1970s. Mongrel, is it? Did Mongrel arrive today? It might have arrived today. So I like collecting my vinyls, my old. I don't like these new reissues. But anyway, it's 6:10, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do now. I'm going to piss off, is what I'm going to do. We've spent enough time in each other's company today, you and me. I had a guest lined up today, a very good guest, but it didn't materialise. And I think the guest might be getting a bit of cold feet about coming on. I don't want that to happen, so I'm not going to say who it is, but it's a very interesting story. I'm trying to organise it, and I want that guest to come back. So, hence me being on my own today, running down the news with you today. Now, tomorrow, Jonathan Ryle returns to the programme. The hypnotherapist. Can't wait. We've got some unbelievably interesting things to talk about with Jonathan Ryle. And Tommy Sheridan returns to the programme as well. We'll talk Scotland freedom! And lots more besides with Tommy Sheridan. Lots happening. And I'll be with you before then, of course, at 9:30 in the morning. 9:30 in the morning for the newspaper review on YouTube. That's 9:30 in the morning with the newspaper review on YouTube. Thank you for listening to this today. Have a lovely rest of your Tuesday. I'm sure there's only one way to go out today, isn't there? Only one way, I would have thought. With this from the great Bob himself. Don't have to tell you what this is called, do I? Look after yourselves and one another. Have a brilliant rest of your Tuesday. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Bye now. Bye.